So, why do I come out here into this beautiful nature, natural environment? And I had a thought recently that relates to our modern culture. And the thought goes something like this, that since the idea of progress comes in along with the scientific revolution. So 17th, 18th century, we start to have this idea that progress happens via an accumulation of knowledge. That knowledge doesn't lie in any single one person. It lies in the collective. And no longer there was this phrase, last man who knew everything. Prior to the 17th century, one could imagine that there was a person who knew everything, who could encompass the knowledge of humanity. It's not true, but there was this idea that there could have been certainly someone who could have had a grasp of all fields of study. A strong grasp. It existed back then, that idea. But with the 17th century, 18th century, then that idea goes away and knowledge starts to lie in the collective, not in the individual. And there's a shift in emphasis, which is to this external collection of knowledge rather than the internal development of the individual, the human. And ever since we've had that idea of progress, we've been on an accelerating treadmill of gaining knowledge. And specialities in sciences and other domains have multiplied, and to be a scientist, one is increasingly specialized, has to be increasingly specialized. And our medicine is incredibly specialized these days. I read recently that if you would get in an accident, say a road accident, not a serious one, sort of a medium seriousness of road accident, so you've been somewhat injured, then you might end up seeing 40 different kinds of specialists of various kinds, all different kinds of imaging and this, that, and the other. Once you were taken into the hospital after your accident, you'd be passed between 40 different people, potentially, to have your injuries treated, diagnosed and treated. So the specialization and the rate of progress the wheel has accelerated. And I had this vision that our minds, and this is all, rather, we're talking about mental knowledge, intellectual knowledge, scientific knowledge. I had this picture of our minds have been moving so fast with the idea of progress that somehow we left our souls behind. In the dust, in the rear view mirror, as we accelerate forward, our souls are back there. And what happens once in a while, perhaps even by accident, is that individuals, or some of us, may actually stop, even just for a second. And in that stopping, as we go forward, our soul might catch up with us. And you get hit from behind as the soul catches up, and you have a spiritual experience. And that's my explanation of spiritual experiences. And it certainly feels like that could be the case in my own experiences. So the soul catches up. But then our habit of progress and doing, rather than being, it goes on and takes up again, and we leave our soul behind again. It's just such a strong habit. And so there has to be many of these stoppings. And I had this thought that, well, maybe that's why I come out here into nature, is because somehow here, in the midst of the soul, I get reminded of my own soul, and I slow down enough that it begins to catch up with me. I begin to remember it. And that is a recovery of a kind of sense of being whole, which many of us don't have, this sense of being whole. And I have a student, I teach classes online, and I have a student at a religions course who said that we all have God-shaped holes in us, and we're looking around in the world for the pieces to put in that God-shaped hole. And in a way, part of our moving so fast is because we think that in the future, as we progress, we'll find the pieces necessary for that God-shaped hole, when really all we need to do is kind of stop and let our soul catch up to us to fill the God-shaped hole, or come out here in nature, which involves a particular kind of slowing down, a particular kind of separation from our culture and the life we live. If you spend time out here, even if it's a little every day, you gradually acclimatizing to the natural pace, the natural rhythms, and the natural rhythm of evolution, which is nature's change and not our own driven version. And so that there's a very different experience that's possible. There's this sense of becoming more whole through being out here, and that's one of the reasons I do it. And so I've started to call the hikes that I do soul hikes. And so I invite you to go to my website, which is voiceofsedona.com, and think about coming on a soul hike with me and see if our souls can catch up to us. All right, blessings.